Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. I'm still got a few symptoms from my cold, but I'm still on the mend, getting better. At least I feel more normal, which is good. So glad to be finally kicking that. But it is that time of year with the weather going crazy, up and down, and too far up, in my opinion. Like today was nuts. I know we talk about the weather all the time, but dude, 81 degrees on October 21st.
Not cool.
Nah,
Not
nah, man.
cool. It's officially late October. I do not want it to be 70, 80 degrees. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no. No, I'm not a fan of it. But I think it's going to be a 2:30 game, right, this weekend on Saturday for the
Yep.
Maryland game. So, and I know it's supposed to be 70, but
No, latest is the high is 60. So it's
that's
shifted. It's
amazing,
shifted a lot in the last few days.
fantastic.
I know. I'm hoping for like 56,
Oh, that'd be
58,
perfect.
somewhere in there.
That'd be
Like
great.
enough to wear my in-between hoodie without having to go directly to my warm hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
I never get to wear the in-between hoodie for games. I love it.
Yeah.
It's maroon and gold. It's
Yep.
both.
Love
Yeah.
that.
A
Yeah,
little
man.
more maroon because I like maroon a little more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's perfect for me. So I like to break that out. So that's the kind of weather I like, honestly. Like in the 50s, 40s, 50s, I think is kind of ideal for football.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think that's the way I grew up with it, and we both did, and it's like these warm games in mid to late October just do not make any sense to me. I mean, we went to games in November that were like below freezing, and
Yeah.
now I don't know if that's ever going to happen again, but we'll see. So
No, that still happens in the late season. That
yeah,
still happens. What we don't get though is as many fall games. But it looks like we're gonna get a fall game this weekend.
yeah,
And I gotta say, I don't think it's your cold, but I now have some sort of cold. So I think you can hear it in my voice a little
a
bit.
little bit, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that mine is less severe than yours was.
I hope so, man. Yeah, just get lots of rest. Don't push yourself because that's what I did. I thought I was just
Yeah.
going to be having normal, whatever, weak cold, and it just turned into a lot because I just kept doing the same stuff I was doing. So yeah,
Right.
rest
Oh,
up.
good.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, but other than that, I
I
don't think
wish
there's
my
a
work
lot.
schedule agreed with me
Oh,
resting up.
yeah, man. I mean, that would be nice if they understood
Yeah.
that, but unfortunately,
If
that
we
they
lived in
don't.
a country where you could just take care of yourself all the time, but I digress.
But colds are just the worst because it's always that in between, where
Yes.
like you feel crappy, but then you like don't feel bad enough not to do everything you want to
Yeah,
do.
you're like, I can function, but you
Yeah,
know you're not clicking on all cylinders.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but to get back to the Big Ten and all that and everything we're gonna talk about here. Sorry, everybody, boring you with our sicknesses and all that. But we there's not a lot going on. As
No.
far as just Big Ten news, we're really just gonna focus in on the games here in this episode. Which there's obviously a lot to talk about, and then maybe some news within those games. But before we get rolling into that, as always, if you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. And you can also email us at We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com. Please follow, like, comment, let us know what you want to hear, talk about everything. We're down. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So, John, week 8 was wild. Should we jump right into these games?
Let's do it.
Okay. First up, we had the Friday night game, and it was the Oregon Ducks 35, the Purdue Boilermakers 0. So before Friday's game, Dan Lanning challenged his team to play well on the road in a short week. I'd say they passed the test. Oregon scored on its first 2 series via Jordan James TD runs, and the Ducks never looked back as they delivered their first road shutout since 1992.
Oh, wow.
Purdue coach Ryan Walters sounded unmoved after the loss. He said, I haven't needed to beg them to continue to play or to be bought in. When you have failures, I think you need to be able to point to why you failed and come up with solutions on how to improve. It gives a sense of hope. Close quote. Purdue could use some hope with the way the season's working out. The Boilermakers dropped to 1-6, and their only win has been over a bad FCS team. Oregon QB Dylan Gabriel was great again, completing an absurd 21 of 25 passes for 290 yards, 11.6 yards per attempt, 2 TDs, 1 pick, and a QBR of 86.7. So another solid, spectacular, really outing for Dylan Gabriel. Jordan James only had 50 yards rushing, but he had those 2 early TDs. So that was solid for him. And then Oregon focused on the passing game to get their yards. A lot of Oregon receivers chipped in as 7 different Ducks caught passes. The leaders were wide receiver Evan Stewart with 4 for 96, wide receiver Tez Johnson, who had 7 for 66 and a TD, and running back Kenyon Sadiq, who had 2 for 58. So nobody else had more than 30 yards receiving. And on DN Mateo Uagalele had 4 tackles, including a sack and 2 TFLs. Linebacker Devin Jackson also had a sack and 2 TFLs. Purdue once again struggled as Ryan Brown was just 9 for 19 for 93 yards, a paltry 4.9 yards per attempt, 0 TDs, and a pick. Yikes. Purdue did manage to run the ball okay, and Reggie Love had 93 yards on 11 carries. Devin Mockabee had some success too, but it just wasn't enough to make up for the anemic passing attack. Nobody had more than 32 yards receiving for Purdue. Tight end Max Clare had 32, and that was about it for the passing game. So, John, what do you have to say about this one?
Yeah, the spoiler makers just didn't come through, man. Maybe Jeff Brom, took that magic bean out of West Lafayette.
I think he did, man. I think
gone.
he did. Yeah,
it's gone because they traditionally, or at least recently for us, the last 10 years or so, Purdue was where top 5 teams go to die. And
I mean, it happened a couple times. It wasn't like all the time. Like, let's not get carried away.
Okay, well, all right. I like the story, but yes, no, yeah. You're right. But it's a fun narrative. They can like give you a little bit of a scare or something, but this was just not it, man. And I was expecting Purdue to put up a little bit more of a fight, and it just didn't happen. I didn't obviously actually expect to win. Oregon is just, obviously and rightfully so, the number 1 team in the country right now. But yeah. I thought they'd be able to score some points or at least look competent, and they just didn't. It was bad, and I'm really not sure what the outlook looks like for Ryan Walters. Does he get another year? I know that we're jumping far ahead here to the off season, whatever, but like it's something you got to talk about in a way as far as Purdue and where they're at. It's I know it's only year 2, but come on. This is rough, man. This is really, really rough.
It's really bad. I would say that it doesn't help that Purdue's main rival is the darling of college football this season.
Nope.
That probably does not, that really does not, that contrasts pretty sharply with, with the way Indiana things are going in Bloomington. And I got to believe, man, that old Oaken Buchan game, Signetti might score 70 points. He might drop 70. He really might.
Yeah.
And he might do it just to send a message and to make the IU faithful happy.
Yep.
So that's what Purdue, it feels like, has to look forward to. I will say they do get a bye, which they desperately need.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll get Northwestern at home. So maybe they could be competitive there, but then they have back-to-back games at Ohio State and home to Penn State. That's rough, dude. And it's just like they better jump up and get Northwestern, because that's the only game left where they feel like they might. I mean, I'm not going to say they have a shot, because I think Northwestern wins that game and will be a sizable favorite.
Yeah.
But have a chance to compete at least.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see that's the thing with Purdue that's scary, is it's not just that I don't see wins on the schedule. I don't even see games that are going to be competitive matches.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I'm seeing here is I'm not seeing improvement. from week to week.
No.
Like we had that,
No.
where Brown looked like he was like he might be an answer and maybe able to give this team a little bit of a spark, but like it's just not enough, man. There's not much going on here on either
And
side of the.
also, was Brown any better, or was it just the fact that Illinois didn't have any film on him, and now everybody has film on him, and now he's not doing anything?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So is he really any better than
Exactly.
Hudson Card? I have my doubts. Hudson Card was the starter for a reason, So, like, I'm not saying Ryan Brown is bad, but I don't know if he's good enough to make up for the fact that Purdue doesn't really have any weapons outside of their tight end.
No, and that's like I said, like I think that the scariest part of all of it is that you're just not seeing any competitiveness. You're not seeing any improvement from week to week. It looks like it's just either staying the same or even getting worse, and that's a scary place to be if you're Purdue. And in this day and age, man, I know coaches usually got 3 years, maybe 4, but that's not how it works anymore. Not how it goes. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Walters is there next year, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they, pull the plug.
I just got to point out once again that Purdue lost their best offensive player and their best defensive player in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you're supposed to build a football team that way.
Yeah.
It makes it really hard. So, like, you can fire Ryan Walters if you really want to. I'm not convinced that makes this any better.
Yeah.
Going forward,
Yep.
So yeah,
it's tough, man.
It's bleak in West Lafayette right now, and I do think I'm with you. He's in trouble, but here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say the thing that I said when he was hired. It was always a mistake to hire a defensive coach at Purdue. Purdue's whole identity as a program is they can't recruit that well, and so they try to be innovative offensively and score points and outscore you a little bit. Yeah. And that's how Purdue has always kind of done things when they've been successful. That's what Joe Tiller did. That's what Jeff Brom did, So I think the idea that you were going to turn Purdue into like Wisconsin or Minnesota or Iowa was always kind of a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he had in mind in his mind when he's trying to build. And I just don't think that's the right model at Purdue. So it sucks, but yeah, if Purdue wants to move on for Ryan Walters, I think I'm at a place where I understand. Like I at first was like, no, you can't fire a guy after 2 years, but it couldn't be any clearer that it's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think at that point, maybe you do have to, cut bait and try to hire a coach who can score some points and who knows how to recruit and develop, talent that isn't the most sought after talent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bleak, but Oregon, you looked like the best team in the country. You took care of business. You did everything you were supposed to. And for a pretty easy layup win, and congratulations to the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah. I mean, you got to say Oregon deserves to be number 1.
Yep.
And they deserve it. Texas went down now. And the thing Oregon's doing that we were just talking about Purdue not doing is Oregon's getting better.
Yep.
They are getting better defensively. They are getting more consistent offensively. So that's important. And we're seeing, maybe they had so many transfers early in the year that it was hard to get everybody up to speed. But now you're kind of seeing them get up to speed. And it's impressive.
Well, what you're seeing from Oregon, too, that I've noticed, and which obviously was, to me, a factor with the Ohio State win, is you're seeing it's the only West Coast team that I've seen that really has the toughness factor.
Oh, yeah.
And the physicality that it takes to win in this conference. And which we kind of predicted anyways to be the case. And
yeah,
and that's what it's going to take to win a national title. I mean, that's what you saw with Michigan last year. The reason they won, it wasn't because I think they were the most talented. I mean, they were insanely talented. Let's put it that way. But
I don't know, man. That was a generational Michigan team.
It was, but like part of the reason to me anyways, what I saw was the fact that they bullied everybody around. They were more physical and just made you want to quit. That's the way it was,
on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and Oregon's doing it, man. And not only is Oregon doing it, at the line of scrimmage, but they're also doing it, with their insane talent at the skill position. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's pretty great.
It's impressive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on to the next game. We had maybe the surprise of the day. The Indiana Hoosiers 56. The Nebraska Cornhuskers 7. This game was never competitive. Have to say that right off the bat.
Nope.
I expected a close game. That is not what we got. This was a full-scale demolition of the Cornhuskers by the Indiana Hoosiers. Yep. This was as bad a beating as you'll see given out all year. Running back Justice Ellison was the star of the first half with 2 touchdowns and 105 yards as Indiana continued its best start in 57 years against Nebraska on Saturday. The only bad news for Indiana right now is that Hoosiers QB Curtis Rourke injured his throwing thumb in the first half and was in street clothes for the second half. Backup Taven Jackson replaced him for the rest of the game. Afterward, Curt Cignetti said about Rourke's injury, quote, "A little thumb thing. I feel good about it. I really do. It was precautionary to take him out," close quote. So Cignetti is minimizing this injury, which makes me think Rourke will maybe be back from this injury sooner than expected, because although he is likely to miss the Washington game at a minimum. So the Hoosiers have yet to trail this season, and each victory has been by double digits. In fact, the 49-point victory was Indiana's largest margin in a conference win since 1945. Yeah. Curtis Rourke was sublime, going 17 of 21 for 189 yards, 9 yards per attempt, 1 TD, and 1 interception for a QBR of 89.8. And Taven Jackson was good in relief, completing 7 of 8 for 91 yards and 2 scores. Running back Justice Ellison was good, as we said earlier. Tyson Lawton chipped in 64 and a TD. And then at wide receiver, Elijah Surratt and Miles Cross led Indiana with 65 yards receiving each, but 10 different Hoosiers caught passes on Saturday. It was not like Elijah Surratt, overwhelmed Nebraska thing. It was just that the Hoosiers overwhelmed Nebraska as a whole. Yep. On D, star linebacker Aiden Fisher had 11 tackles, including 4 solos, so a nice day for him. And for Nebraska, man, I don't even know what to say. It was abysmal out there. I mean, seemingly nothing worked on either side of the ball. Dylan Raiola looked like a true frosh, completing 28 of 44 for 234 yards, just 5.3 yards per attempt, 0 TDs, and 3 costly interceptions. Raiola also lost a fumble for a total of 4 turnovers. Woof. Nobody could run the ball for Nebraska, as the Huskers managed just 70 yards on 2.4 yards per rough. That's brutal. And tight end Thomas Fidone made some plays with 6 catches for 91 yards, but nobody else looked like they belonged on the same field as the Hoosiers, to be totally honest. I had a Nebraska fan afterwards on Twitter, John, try to tell me that the Cornhuskers were the more talented team on Saturday. And to that, I just have to ask, how much were you drinking? Because Indiana was superior in every facet of the game, players, coaches, etc.
Everywhere on the field.
I mean, the only place I'd say on defense, you could argue it was comparable, maybe.
I don't even know about that, dude.
I don't even know about that. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think so. I got to disagree entirely. Yeah. I think Indiana, sorry to interrupt you. I'll let you get back to your thing. But
no. Go to
Indiana. The question was, can they stay? Do they have the guys at the line of scrimmage? And they freaking do.
They're not
just a bunch of firepower at the skill position. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They ran the ball down their throats. They threw everywhere they freaking wanted to. The defense showed up big time. You held Nebraska to 7 points.
Yeah.
And then racked up 56 on them like it was nothing. And your starting quarterback went out in the after the first half. Like, come on, man.
That's like what Nebraska you do to Indiana State.
Yes. Like, Nebraska couldn't even mount a comeback and capitalize on that. Like, you lost your superstar quarterback, and Nebraska still couldn't do anything.
Did nothing. Yeah, I couldn't believe that, man. And he was serious too. He's like, I had an Indiana fan on my show. This is the podcaster. He's like, I had an Indiana fan on my show say that they were more talented. I was like, dude, I don't care what the recruiting rankings say.
Yeah, how many stars are next
I
to your
know
name?
what my eyes say.
Yeah.
And my eyes say that the Indiana was better than Nebraska everywhere except for tight end.
Yeah. And
Where
I
I'd
have to
say,
say,
you
go
know,
ahead.
no, I'm just saying that was like Fedone is good, but other than that,
Yeah.
man,
Well, and that's just it. Like this team, I'm sick and tired, and I know so many people have this conversation, but like, and this comes from but Nebraska almost every year when it comes to like, well, we have this star and this guy and this transfer and this, and it's like, yeah, we hear it every year. Win more than 5 games, and tell me, and then maybe I'll take some, like, I'll actually put some substance or take something like substantial from your star ratings, because as of right now, they've meant nothing for 8-9 years.
I mean, to be fair, they're 5-2.
That's fine, and that's great. I still think they're gonna
they're having a better year overall.
And I think they will still go bowling, but like this argument that they're somehow so much more talented than these other teams is just wrong.
It's got to stop.
It's just wrong.
It doesn't pass the eye test.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I'm just saying this, like, Indiana is more talented than I'd say 2-3/4 of the rest of the Big Ten at this point is the way I look at it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they show it every week.
Yep.
They show it every test they have, and it seems like, yeah. So yeah. So what did you think about this game as a whole?
Well, I mean, after everything I've already said, but like I just to elaborate on a few other things, is the fact that this vaunted Nebraska defensive line let Justice Ellison run for 105 yards on nine carries.
Yeah.
Tyson Lawton for 64 yards on 8. It's like
it's a lot of yards per carry, man.
Yeah, they racked up 215 yards against this, and which is a good defensive line.
Yes.
But you and I talked about this, and you said this. Nash Hotmacher was a freaking ghost.
He was invisible out there, man. Did he even play?
And this is one of the most dominant D tackles in the Big Ten. And
in the league, yeah.
Illinois' offensive line erased him.
Indiana,
sorry. Yes, Indiana's offensive line just totally erased him from the game. So, I mean, Indiana, to me, can beat anybody on their schedule, and that includes Ohio State. And I know that may sound like a bold claim, but it's true. Ohio State should be worried about this team.
I'd be more worried about Indiana than anyone else left on Ohio State's schedule.
Yep.
Because Indiana can score points.
Yep.
And they can score them in bunches. And the only 3 teams in the Big Ten that can do that are Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana. They are the only teams with those kind of explosive offenses. Even Penn State, who's great. I love Penn State. Like, don't get me wrong. They're really good. But Penn State is not a guaranteed 40 points a game.
No.
Indiana is a guaranteed 40 points a game. A guarantee that if you want to beat them, you better score 40 points.
Yep.
Or else you better show something on defense that no one else has showed all year.
Yeah.
You know?
I know that, like, a lot of people were wondering, and maybe some people still are thinking that Indiana's a paper tiger, but they're wrong. This team should be this team should be in the top 10. They should be a top 10 team.
They should absolutely be a top 10 team. Imagine if this team was in the SEC.
Oh, they'd be top 6 at least.
Yeah,
probably.
they'd be talking about them how they were talking about Ole Miss earlier this year before Ole Miss got exposed.
Exactly. So I think Indiana's the real deal. They can do everything and anything. Curtis Rourke, sure, might be. I think they should be able to handle it. We'll get that into the preview. Even without Curtis Rourke, I think they should be able to handle Washington. But we'll see. But Nebraska, man,
should they?
Without Curtis Rourke?
Without Curtis Rourke, you think that's that? I mean, dude, I like Indiana a lot. I think Taven Jackson's gotten better, man. But Will Rogers or Taven Jackson, who do you like?
I like Will Rogers. I do.
Jonah Coleman or Indiana's running backs, who do you like? I'm Indiana should be favored, right? Yeah. And I'm spoiler alert, I'm probably gonna pick Indiana to win.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's an easy game.
Oh, I don't think it's easy. No. And don't get me wrong. I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I think it should be close. And Washington
I
could
think
absolutely
Washington is
pull it
one of
out.
the teams that's equipped to make it interesting against Indiana
Yeah,
because they have
they
a
can score
balance.
points.
They can score points and they
Yep.
can run and throw the ball.
Yes, true. Yeah, I think it's gonna be that will be a shootout, is what I expect. But we'll get into that for the preview. But just to
Yep.
touch a little bit more here on Nebraska, though, is like uh, this is a team that likes to run the ball first. And now I know they've got this touted superstar Dylan Raiola quarterback, and they want to throw the ball. Of course, I get it, but like you don't have the weapons at the receiving position to do that consistently. And you were supposed to, at this point in time, have at least one or two running backs that should be able to get it done, and they're just not. It's just not happening. And that's a scary place to be in the Big Ten. If you can't run the ball in the Big Ten, and now
you're a running back by committee in the Big Ten, it means you don't have one or two running backs who are better than everybody else on the roster.
And now you're solely putting everything on the shoulders of a true freshman to win your games for you. That's not a good place to be at this point.
It's a lot to ask of Dylan Raiola.
Absolutely. I mean, he's good. The kid's good.
Yeah.
No doubt.
All kinds of potential, but he is a true frosh.
Exactly.
And Nebraska was better when they were able to run the ball to open up the passing game and against the way they looked against Colorado.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's not happening as much for Nebraska in recent weeks.
No. And it just seems to be going all over the place between Emmett Johnson, Ramir Johnson, Gabe Irvin Jr. Like they can't settle on somebody. I mean, Henrik Harburg had the most rushing yards in this game. So
that's not good.
No. When your backup quarterback has more rushing yards than your starting running back, it's not a good place to be. So yeah, man, Nebraska's got to go back to the drawing board. It also surprised me that Matt Rule was like, we weren't prepared for this. Like, well, why not? Like, have you not been watching the news of what Indiana's doing to everybody? Like, and you came into this game not prepared for this? Like,
I think Matt Rule thought that Indiana was a paper tiger. I think he thought they were going to show up and be better on the lines of scrimmage, and then they just weren't.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? I think he thought he was going to be able to run the ball and play defense and win a low-scoring Big Ten game, and instead he just got run off the field in one half by the Indiana offensive juggernaut. This gets really interesting with two losses for Nebraska now, right?
Yep.
Because they have at Ohio State on Saturday. That's not going to happen, right?
No.
Let's not kid ourselves. That's not going to happen. So that gives them, they're at 5-2. So that means be 5-3. Then they got 4 wins or 4 games to get bowl eligible. UCLA, at SC, Wisconsin, at Iowa. I mean, I think they'll win a couple of those probably, but it's not like a guarantee or anything.
No, I could see one for sure. I mean, I can't tell you which one because I think USC is also beatable.
UCLA is better now.
UCLA is better now.
And I think they're yes. Would I pick Nebraska in that game? Well, I don't know. What if I would?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's a coin flip more than what they maybe previously thought it was going to be. But I think
they have to play SC and LA, and that's rough too.
That's rough. And then you have Wisconsin and Iowa.
Yeah.
So
I'm not. I mean, I think Nebraska is going to make a bowl game, but I'm just saying it's not a slam dunk that they're gonna.
No, and I think a lot of people thought it was this year. I mean, like they do every year. But
I did. I was one of them.
Yeah, I thought at least 6-7 wins, and I still think 6 is.
I thought the running game would be better this year.
Yeah, same.
And I wonder if Nebraska needs to make a change at offensive coordinator after this year.
Well, we talked about it last year. How Marcus Satterfield was a terrible hire.
Yes.
So did nobody do the research on this guy?
I think Rule's going to be in a position where he has to fire him.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if it happens. I don't think Rule's the kind of guy who fires a coordinator midseason.
Yeah.
But I think that after Nebraska's last regular season game, within a day or two, you'll see Marcus Satterfield given his walking papers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what you have to do because the defense is developing, but the offense is not developing the way you should to take advantage of the schedule that you have.
Well, and you've got this freshman phenom that you're hoping to develop into being a superstar. And if you stick with an offensive coordinator that can't get the job done, you're wasting time on this kid. So you don't got time to lose. So I think that would be the right choice. But we'll see. Nebraska's got work to do, man. I do think they go bowling, but that road to more than 6 wins looks a heck of a lot harder.
It looks harder than it did before this game for sure.
Yep.
Is Indiana going to make the college football playoff?
I mean, I think they could, which is
because
terrifying.
Let's say, okay, I think they have a chance against Ohio State. I really do. But let's say they lose to Ohio State, right?
Sure.
Who else are they going to lose to? Washington, they're favored and should be. Michigan, they're favored and should be.
Absolutely.
Like who else? I'm trying to think. Like, let me look at who else they have left. I just think it's crazy when you think about where Indiana has been as a program and the fact that, okay, Washington, they're favored. Then they have to go to East Lansing.
Michigan State.
That should be favored, you know, and then Michigan and then Ohio State. And yeah, those are tough games, but I would favor them over Michigan.
Yep.
And then Purdue, who they might drop 70 points on. Kurt Signetti might drop 70 points on Purdue just to make a point.
Yep.
Just to like really rub it in because he just seems like that kind of guy to me.
Yep.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Indiana fans. In a good way. He's the kind of guy who I could see being like, yeah, because Indiana hasn't done well in this rivalry in recent years. And I don't think Signetti just wants to win. I think he wants to send a message that he owns this state.
100%, dude. Now, Joe Rossi.
I think if Signetti could schedule Notre Dame tomorrow, he would. So he could really prove he owns the state.
And I think they would beat Notre Dame tomorrow.
Dude, they could play Notre Dame in the playoff.
Yep.
And I would be taking Indiana.
100%.
Think about that. Think about that.
That'd be amazing.
Dude, Signetti, man. I just don't even know what to say anymore about him. We've turned into a full-out Indiana Hoosiers podcast. We're not even trying to be. Just like we were a Michigan podcast last year without even trying to be.
It's true. This time I like the team a little bit more. So,
Yeah.
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 As a Gopher fan, it's
as a Gopher fan, I have my issues with Michigan.
For sure.
Period.
Yeah.
We should still have the jug. Just saying. All right. Should we move on?
I think we should, yeah.
Next up, we had the Illinois Illini 21, the Michigan Wolverines 7. The Illini wore throwback unis to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Red Grange's 6 TD performance against Michigan on the day Memorial Stadium was dedicated. Unsung hero Tanner Arkin caught a 2-yard TD pass from Altmaier in the second quarter, but more importantly, he raced 36 yards on a fake punt to set up an Altmaier 1-yard TD run. That fake punt changed the game. Illinois hadn't beaten Michigan since 2009. Michigan scored its fewest points in a game since 2014 and has lost back-to-back games for the first time since 2020. Illini coach Brett Bielema made an interesting comment after. He said, quote, "For the first time, I felt like we had a home field advantage today. I want today to be the standard. We had a crowd that affected the game," close quote. It's no secret that Illinois is historically a basketball school and their fans do not show up well for football games. Well, on Saturday, that changed with a sellout performance. Illinois led 13-7 at half, then enhanced the lead in the third quarter with an 8-play, 55-yard TD drive, which effectively sealed the win. Illinois QB Luke Altmaier didn't do much, as he was just 9 for 18 for 80 yards and 2 total TDs. The running game didn't do a ton either, as they managed just 187 yards rushing. John, Illinois had only 267 yards of offense, and they won comfortably. How? The defense was dominant.
Mm-hmm.
The fake punt was run at the exact right time. And Michigan just doesn't have a quarterback. They just don't. Linebacker Gabe Jacques was fantastic with 13 tackles, including 2.5 sacks. Monster day for him. Senior DL Tira Edwards also had 2 sacks in the day for Illinois. For Michigan, man, it just gets uglier. Jack Tuttle completed 20 of 32 passes, but for just 208 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt, 0 TDs, and a pick for a QBR of 22.0. Brutal.
Didn't he also fumble the ball?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
For Michigan only managed 114 yards rushing. Even Khalil Mullings was largely shut down with just 87 yards on the day and a TD. Illinois was laser focused on stopping that run game, and Michigan can't pass the ball outside of the tight ends. Once again, tight end Colston Loveland led Michigan in receiving with 7 catches for 83 yards, and tight end Hogan Hansen had 4 for 50. And the wide receivers once again managed almost nothing, as Samaj Morgan had 4 for 28. Woof. So what are your thoughts on this one, John?
This is a total implosion by Michigan, dude.
It's brutal. It's
like-
hard to watch.
It's really hard to watch. This is like Iowa last year, and it's really bad. Like, it's so tough to watch. Except I think Iowa's defense was probably better than Michigan's defense right now, which is crazy.
Iowa's defense was significantly better last year
Yes.
than Michigan's defense is right now.
So, but like, I don't know what to do, and I don't think they know what to do in Ann Arbor. I think I think a lot of people are questioning the hiring of Sharon Moore.
Yeah,
they
because
jumped
he
the
thought
gun.
Alex Orji was the answer at quarterback.
Yep.
How did he think that? How could he have possibly thought that?
I don't know. And then the regression of Donovan Edwards, and
Yeah,
I just
and the defense. How about the defensive regression? How about the defensive line? Which was dominant last year, had just about everybody back, and with 2 All-American defensive tackles, somehow can't generate a consistent pass rush or pressure in the backfield. How's that even possible?
And after what we saw them do last year, exactly. Like,
they wrecked
it's like, I don't know how it's possible, dude. I don't know how they're managing to do it. So what I'm looking at with this team is that I mean, I know that you and I talked about Jack Tuttle maybe being the only answer and the only person that might be able to come back, but and maybe make a difference with his experience, but it's not happening. It's not happening with him.
He can't
He's
play.
A mess. He fumbled the ball twice. He recovered the second one or the first, whatever. But like, then he can't protect the ball. He looks like a mess back there. His offensive line can't protect him. And I don't know what to do. I think Michigan is at a total loss, and I'm not sure. Like we talked about, and I don't think it's gonna. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen because Michigan. I don't know if they can tolerate Sharon Moore for more than 1 year. I don't think he's gonna get fired, but I'm also thinking, does Michigan have that tolerance to hold on to him?
If he doesn't go to a bowl, do you think he keeps his job?
I don't think so. I don't think Michigan tolerates that. I don't think they would. What do you think?
I almost don't think you can.
Yeah.
I wonder, man. I mean, Michigan is 4-3, right? And you look at their remaining schedule; it's tough. They got to play Sparty. That's not a sure win by any means at this point.
Yep.
Then they get Oregon. Then they have to go to Bloomington to play the Hoosiers. They have a tricky game against Northwestern, and then they go to Ohio State. So they got to win 2 of those games. So you think they'll be favored against Michigan State and Northwestern, but that's it. They won't be favored in any of those other games. So what if Michigan goes 6-6, 5-7?
Dude.
And at that point, and also, you know what else I'm going to say? And this isn't fair. This isn't fair at all. But I think the leash is shorter on Sharon Moore and Ryan Walters because of Kurt Signetti.
Yeah.
I think it's that big a deal. Yeah. I think his success is that big a deal. And you can't tell me that maybe they're not saying that, like, somebody in Ann Arbor isn't saying, hey, why don't we just go get somebody like Kurt Signetti or go get Kurt Signetti himself?
Yep.
Why don't we do that? What are we doing here with Sharon Moore, with a guy who's never been a head coach, who's failing, who got us the wrong quarterback, who's had his defense regress, whose offense, the offense that's supposed to be his baby, is a I mean, it's hard to watch. It's so bad. And
Yeah.
that's his side of the ball. That's the thing. That's the thing. The offense is his side of the ball. So for it to be this bad in year one with the talent that Michigan has, with the way that they recruit, you have to be thinking about making a change, don't you?
I think
And I
you
know
have
this
to.
sounds crazy. I'm sure we sound crazy, but I just think the world is different now with all the money.
Yeah. It absolutely is. I agree. I think you have to, especially if you do miss a bowl game, and as the defending national champions, like that's inexcusable.
Dude, I don't think that's ever. I mean, has that ever happened? That's maybe Auburn after Cam Newton went pro.
Maybe I'm
I
not
don't
even
even
sure
know
that
though.
happened.
I'm not even sure that happened either. Yeah.
But like, I don't think there's that. I don't think people in Michigan will tolerate it. I don't think they will. I think they'll make a change if that were to happen, come to fruition. I think that it's going to have to be somebody else, and I could see them trying to get Kurt Signetti over there. I'm sure they won't be the only ones trying to get Kurt Signetti away from Indiana.
Dude.
Like we've talked about it. mentioned it
Signetti's
before.
agent is going to be busy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I hope he stays in Indiana, but we'll see.
I do too, man. I do too. I hope he stays in Bloomington, but like what he's doing is such a historic outlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are going to be talking about there's going to be a 30 ESPN 30 for 30. There's going to be a Netflix documentary. There might be a Hollywood movie. Like this season in Indiana football is going to resonate so far in so many directions that Kurt Signetti's going to have some decisions to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a school like Michigan, man, I got to believe that they feel right now like Sharon Moore was the wrong hire.
Well, and the game wasn't even very competitive. Like, Illinois, I know offensively they didn't do much, but that defense was so dominant, and they held Michigan to 7 points, which is insane.
It's crazy.
And
crazy.
I don't know the last time I've seen a Michigan team look this bad. I mean, I think like
it was 2014 under Brady Hoke.
Yeah, but even that, like, I mean, it was bad.
That was bad. But the offense wasn't this bad.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I feel like it was bad, but it was like there was still something to kind of balance it out. But no, this is horrendous. And so Sharon Moore, man, I don't know what's going on. He was supposed to be this offensive genius, and it is not happening. It looks terrible, and that defense regressing as well, like we said. But to talk about Illinois though, which we gotta give them props, is like
we gotta talk about Illinois. We got to.
Dude, the brilliance of Brett Bielema. And the fact that his offense didn't have to do much, and they were still be able to win this comfortably.
His offense did almost nothing.
Yeah, and they still put up 21 points, and it was like, oh, okay, and it looked easy for most of the game.
Yeah, because his defense is finally clicking.
Yep,
and at the right time.
Because of course it is, Brett Bielema. Thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to watch them go to play against the Ducks this week.
Yeah.
Because they might be able to challenge Oregon in a way that most teams can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to beat them or anything.
No.
But like that's an interesting matchup to me. It will show us like how close is Illinois to Ohio State and Oregon. We saw them against Penn State, came up a little short.
Yeah.
They've gotten better since then.
Yeah.
Do we see them play better against Oregon than they did against Penn State? That's going to be really interesting to look at in the preview episode.
For sure, But again, all the people that doubted Brett Bielema every year, it's like,
man.
Do not.
We called it. We called it in the preseason.
Yes,
we said
did.
we don't know how. We said we don't know how or who the players are or what it looks like, but somehow Brett Bielema is going to have a good year, and he's having a great year.
And people thought we were crazy.
People did. They thought we were overreacting.
Never doubt Brett Bielema, man.
No.
We learned our lesson years and years ago.
No, he is the great pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Yep.
When he wears the orange thing, when he wears the bright orange. I wish he wore that for every game. Just go full pumpkin. I love when Bielema goes full pumpkin.
Well, congratulations, Illini.
And dude, you know what? And it'll be interesting if Michigan moved on, who obviously Signetti isn't, but it'd be interesting to see who they'd even look at. Because I have a feeling Cignetti's going to have his choice of anywhere, including Bloomington.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And so if you're Michigan, what's your play? Like, what can you offer? What can you offer that other people can't? It'll be, and if they don't go that route, if they go a different route, where would they try to go? So that'll be something to track. I feel a little bad for Sharon Moore, but you know what? Like, I don't think in this day and age, I think hiring a first-time head coach is a mistake at the power conference level.
Yeah,
I think you need those guys to have made their mistakes already and learn their lessons already. And you can't have them learning in the job. It used to be that the talent differential was big enough that if you were at a Michigan, a guy like Sharon Moore could take over and still win 10 games.
Yep.
Just on the talent differential. Those days are behind us.
Yep. It's
not true anymore. And we've seen that this year. Michigan's 4-3 and should be 3-4.
Yep.
So Sharon Moore, you're on notice, unfortunately. That's where we're at.
Yep. Crazy.
All right. Next game, we had the Wisconsin Badgers 23, the Northwestern Wildcats 3. Wisconsin running back Tawi Walker took no time to make his presence felt in this one. He broke off a 24-yard run to help set up Wisconsin's first TD, despite the fact that Northwestern had a top 10 rushing D entering the game. A strip sack by John Pius set up a 3-yard Cade Yakimelli TD late in the first half to give the Badgers a 14-0 halftime lead. Another strip sack in the fourth quarter by Sebastian Cheeks and Kurt Neal pushed the lead to 23-3. Wisconsin was so excited, their strength coach jumped in Lake Michigan after the game. The Cats could not sustain drives and missed some opportunities in this game. At one point, the teams traded blocked field goal attempts, John.
Yeah,
so that was fun.
Wild.
That was interesting. Excuse me. Wisconsin QB Braden Locke was not explosive and made some mistakes, but he ended up 14 for 24, 6.7 yards per attempt, 1 TD, and 1 pick for a QBR of just 37.7, but it was more than enough because the defense was lights out and because running back Tawi Walker had 126 yards to lead Wisconsin. Top wide receiver Will Pauling at 5 grabs for 51 yards, and safety Hunter Wooler at 5 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a pass defended, so a nice day for him. Cats QB Jack Lausch, man, was just 9 for 24 for 82 yards, 3.4 yards per attempt, and a QBR of just 23. Yikes. The running game had a few moments, but only managed 127 yards and 4.1 yards per rush, and it just wasn't enough to overcome the total lack of a passing attack. Wisconsin was aggressive, taking the run away and forcing Jack Lausch to beat them. Lausch could not do it. So, John, what do you think about this one?
Well, first, I want to just give a little shout out to our friend Scooby. And he just had some thoughts I told him I would share. And he just said, it was very sluggish. Badgers were very sluggish on offense, but weeded through the muck of the Northwestern defense and came out on top, which it was a pretty messy game. So I totally see what he's saying there. But losing Xander Mueller was huge, I think, as well. And he made sure to point that out. And it definitely was.
I mean, he's Northwestern's best player.
Exactly. So that really hindered them a lot, which makes a lot of sense why Tawi Walker was able to do what he was able to do. But the other point that Scooby made, and I got to agree, man, taking Ches Malusi out of the mix really opened up the running game a ton because I think from what we were made aware of, or at least what we've been led to believe here with Scooby, is that who knows, maybe there was a little bit of toxicity, some negativity going on in there with him because he felt like he wanted to be the feature back and he just wasn't. It was more of a running back by committee at that time. Tawi Walker was seeing more, was getting more touches, more and more each week. And obviously now we see why.
Yes.
So, I think now that you've really got that established who your number one running back is, and it's clearly paying off. So, I think with this game, you're seeing Wisconsin get better, man. You're just seeing them find their identity, or maybe re-find their identity, if you will, rediscover exactly who they've always been. And it's working out. They're that run first team. Braden Locke does just enough to get things done through the air. And that's what we have always seen. And now you're seeing it, and you're seeing it work with success against these teams. So I think Wisconsin is definitely on the rise. They're figuring some things out. And defensively, I think they're also getting a little bit better. So it's in the right time of the season, just like we said previously with another team. I think this is the right time. You want to figure out who you are, and you want to be able to establish yourself and finish out that season on a high. And I think this team could definitely continue to win games throughout. So, uh, and as far as Northwestern goes, they just got to keep working at it, man. I think there's a lot of talent. I think
Defense did a good job.
yes, I think the
Defense did a
defense.
good job considering how bad when you consider how bad the offense was to hold
Yeah,
Wisconsin to 23 points, I thought was good.
yeah, I think the defense is getting better. You know, I know he had terrible stats, but I think Jack Lausch is the future. I think he just needs another year. The guy has some talent. You can see he's a freak athlete out there on the field. He's got legs that are insane. And I think when he's on, he's on. But he just clearly wasn't this game. And they need more they need more targets to throw to as well. So, and
Yeah,
unfortunately,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and unfortunately, Cam Porter just isn't consistent enough to help him out with the ground game either. So
No.
he just needs more. He needs more help.
Yeah, I forget. Is Henning hurt? Is that why he didn't do anything?
I mean, I don't know if he was dinged up, but he was out there.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
but Bryce Kurtz didn't do a lot either. It
No.
was Thomas Gordon was the one who came down with most of the yards.
So you say Wisconsin will continue to win games, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but this is interesting. The schedule gets really tough. So they got at Penn State, 6:30 NBC. Here comes Saturday night game. Or not at Penn State. Penn State at Camp Randall. At Iowa, Oregon, at Nebraska, Minnesota. So it gets real for Wisconsin right now. And it's going to be really interesting to see, from where they are now, where they're going to end up by the end of the year.
Yeah, I still think with the schedule they had, and I think you and I predicted, or at least I did, predicted them to go 7-5, and I think 7-5.
And they're already 5-2.
Yeah, I think it's very feasible to get to 7-5, maybe 8-4.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yes.
So, which is would be a great record at the end of this year because of that schedule.
Considering you lost Tyler Van Dyke.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
So if you still manage to get to 7-5, 8-4, then that's a pretty good job.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Maybe Luke Fickell will have calmed the doubters a little bit.
Well, or did Phil Longo calm the doubters? Is he willing to adjust? Because that's
maybe Longo is going to keep his job now.
Yeah, makes you think.
It does, unless he wants out to run the air raid his style.
That's true,
which is also possible. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Wisconsin OC situation. All right, should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's go.
UCLA Bruins 35, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights 32. Ethan Garbers was fantastic on Saturday, and Rutgers had no answer for him as UCLA snapped a 5-game losing streak with a win over struggling Rutgers. UCLA was the only FBS team that had not scored 20 points in a game all season. That streak was over by half as UCLA led 21-10 at the break. Rutgers star running back Kyle Monungai, his third TD cut the lead to 35-32, but Grant Gray recovered the onside kick and UCLA ran out the clock. It looked like he returned it for a TD actually, but it was called back for a penalty. Rutgers cut the lead to 21-19 in the third quarter with a touchdown on a Jai Patel field goal. However, UCLA scored on a long swing pass to Jones on a blown coverage from Rutgers after that. Frankly, there were too many blown coverages for Rutgers on this day.
Yep.
Rutgers coach Greg Schiano said, quote, "I will not come up here and start to feel like the sky is falling down. I promise you. We did a lot of good things out there today, just weren't good enough to win," close quote. UCLA QB Ethan Garbers was a scorching hot 32 for 38, 84% completions, 383 yards, 10.1 yards per attempt, 4 TDs, 0 picks for a QBR of 96.6.
Yeah.
An incredible day for Garbers. I had some UCLA fans, including friend of the pod, Bruin Source, that thought he should have been benched. I'm saying that's wrong, and you were reminded on Saturday why he's the starter.
Yeah.
UCLA only ran for 95 yards, so they didn't do much on the ground, but it didn't matter. Garbers was unstoppable. And running back Keegan Jones had 5 catches for 114 yards, while tight end Maliki Matavayo had 6 for 104. On D, linebacker Carson Swessinger had 10 tackles. And for Rutgers, QB Ethan Kaliakmanis finally completed over 50% of his passes. So I guess that's progress. He was 18 for 30 for 287 yards, to be fair, 9.6 yards per attempt, 0 TDs, and a pick. So that's a QBR of just 65.3, but it's also his best showing in quite a while. So hopefully he can build off that a little bit. Kyle Monangai was good, but not great, with 126 yards on 5.6 yards per rush and 3 TDs. Honestly, Monangai probably needed even more carries in this game, but with Rutgers playing from behind, they couldn't run the ball as much as they wanted to. And wide receiver KJ Duff led Rutgers with 82 yards on 3 catches. John, you called this upset. The floor is yours.
Yeah, this UCLA team is the team I think we've been waiting to see break out. Like, you've seen them fight in every game, and we talked about it, how like they don't give up. Like, Deshaun Foster has them bought in on something, and they play real hard. There's definitely talent there. Just something hasn't been clicking. But I got to give credit to Eric Bieniemy, man. Like, he really he put up a really good game plan, and this scheme worked very well. And Ethan Garbers flourished. So this is what we've been waiting to see. They finally, and I think like that defense too, UCLA, like people don't know how good that run defense is. And Kyle Monangai is so good that he's still going to score 3 touchdowns and go for over 100 yards because he's just that good.
But they kept him under control a little bit.
Exactly. He
didn't go off.
Yep, exactly. So I think, and they knew that if they forced Rutgers to throw the ball, Ethan was probably going to cost them the game, or at least not be too much of a threat.
He's not going to win them the game.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So they got it done, man. And Ethan Garbers just showed up in a big way. This is what we've been waiting to see. This is the talented quarterback that they've been talking about for a while now, and he's there. And I think the running game for UCLA, even though it didn't do much at all, you were able to get enough production out of, I know it wasn't a lot. The stats don't show anything great there, but I think Jalen Berger had a good enough day to take pressure off at key moments for Ethan Garbers to continue to open up that passing game. It was enough
to keep Rutgers from just teeing off and pass rushing every play.
Exactly. So, and again, though, but this Rutgers defense just seems to be regressing. And
it's
don't
so
know what's
strange
going on.
To watch.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the strength of their team.
They're supposed to be one of the best defenses in the Big Ten.
Yep. So I don't know what's going on there.
Was Mohamed Toure that important? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems like they should be better than they've been.
I agree. It just doesn't seem like anybody else has stepped up to be that guy for them. And you would have thought like Ingbenosson or Flip Dixon or somebody would have become that leader in the backfield, but it doesn't seem to be happening. So yeah, I don't know. It seems to me that Rutgers, although still a dangerous team, when you got a guy like Kyle Monangai, they're regressing. They're not getting much better. Where UCLA, I still don't think they're going to be winning a ton of games this season, but
they're getting better every week.
Yes, and you can see what they can build off for next season, and that's a positive. So I think there's optimism in for UCLA, and I think that it's a great thing where they got some things to figure out, man, in Piscataway. I'm not sure what's going on there. So
yeah, I know Greg Schiano said that it was kind of a tell, though. He said, "I'm not going to act like the sky is falling."
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he had to say the sky's not falling means that there are pieces of the sky coming down a little bit. So Schiano's got a lot to figure out because this was supposed to be his big year, and it's not turning out to be his big year.
Yeah, I mean, that schedule was pretty darn favorable. And
really favorable.
I saw them as potentially winning 9, even 10 games, but now
I know. I thought they were going to be better too.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to go 8-4, 9-3.
Yeah.
Potentially. But we said it. We said before the season, if Rutgers can't get it done, it's going to be because they tried to ride Ethan Kaliakmanis.
Yep.
But it's not just that. It's the defense too. That's the thing. It would be one thing if it was just that, but the defense is now regressing also.
Yeah. And
This is
with
a
Ethan,
devastating loss, man. There's no way to dress this up.
oh no, it's a
they've been
bad
struggling
loss.
for a few weeks in a row now.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to go back to the drawing board. They got to figure out some stuff, especially defending the pass.
Yeah. And it's just it's Ethan, with that, like, he's a freaking roller coaster, dude. It's either he throws some ridiculously perfect deep ball and it's just right in the breadbasket, but then the next play he throws it behind and it gets intercepted. Like it's just it's
Yeah.
feast or famine with that guy.
He's exhausting. It's
Yeah.
got to be exhausting to play with him.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Dude, it doesn't get any easier for them either. They have to go to SC and play at what's a 10 p.m. East Coast start.
Oof.
Or no, 11 p.m. East Coast start. Is that right? 8 o'clock Pacific. So like a very late game.
Yeah.
Then they get a bye week. Then they host Minnesota. Then they go to Maryland. Then they have Illinois. Then Sparty. So like, it's not gonna get any easier.
No, it's gonna be tough. So
they got to figure it out. They got to figure it out and try to rally and find a way to beat SC. Yeah. If they lose another one going into that, if they lose another one going into the break,
yeah,
I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not saying we're talking about them missing a bowl or anything, but I don't. They're 4-3. It's not a sure thing that they're going to win 2 more games.
Yeah, it's a little. It reminds me a little bit of Nebraska. Like I don't know what's going on and what's going wrong in certain places.
But at least Nebraska's 5-2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being 4-3, it's a lot shakier ground.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure, man. Yeah. I still think they get to a bowl game, but yeah, I think I'm not sure.
But we can forget about 8 games.
Yeah, for sure 8. Yeah, I think it's done.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We had next up the Maryland Terrapins 29, the USC Trojans 28. Miller Moss threw a bad pick in the third quarter. The defense allowed 2 TD drives in the fourth quarter. Sound familiar? Including one after a blocked field goal attempt that would have iced the game. And USC blew yet another late lead, losing 29-28 to make the Trojans to give the Trojans their 4th Big Ten Conference loss of the year. They've lost 4 games by a total of 14 points, all after being ahead in the second half. Trojans coach Lincoln Riley said, quote, "That's the tale of the last several weeks for us, is doing some good things, get a lead, and we obviously just have not been able to finish these games. It eats at you." Close quote. Michael Lance's field goal attempt with 2 minutes left that would have sealed the game was blocked by Maryland's Donnell Brown. A costly PI penalty on John Humphrey on the next drive led to Billy Edwards' go-ahead 3-yard touchdown with 53 seconds left. Moss's incomplete pass on 4th down with 11 seconds left ended the game. Fans stormed the field to celebrate once again. Maryland QB Billy Edwards was a fantastic 39 for 50 for 78% completions, 373 yards, just 7.5 yards per attempt, but 2 TDs and a pick. Was it a lot of dinking and dunking? Sure. Did it work? Absolutely. The Terrapins could not run the ball as they managed just 56 yards rushing for 2.3 yards per rush. Woof. Luckily, the passing game was humming as Caden Prather, Octavian Smith, and Ty Felton each had 8+ catches and 84+ yards receiving. They were the catalyst of that Maryland offense all night. Linebacker Ruben Hippolyte, our old buddy, had a nice game with 7 tackles. For USC, it was more production without payoff, John. Miller Moss was 34 for 50 for 336 yards, but only 6.7 yards per attempt, 3 TDs, and 1 interception. They had explosive plays, but it wasn't enough without the help of the running game. USC managed just 81 yards and only rushed the ball 24 times in total. 24 runs and 50 passes is not the kind of offensive balance even Lincoln Riley wants to have. Like, how does that even happen? Or maybe it is, and that's the problem.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think so too, man, because one way or another, USC just consistently does not have as many rushing attempts as they should. And that's a coaching problem, period.
Yep.
Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch all caught balls, all recorded somewhat explosive plays, but it just wasn't quite enough once again. John, what did you think about this game?
We said prior to the season when we were breaking down each team.
Yes, last summer,
we specifically stated that if USC doesn't consistently run the ball to help out Miller Moss, they aren't going to be as dominant as a lot of people projected them to, or as many of the fans thought they would be.
Yep.
And that's what's happening. And it's because of your head coach. It's not that you don't have a capable running back. You do. Woody Marks has shown those flashes where he can do some really special things, but you're not letting him do it.
Yeah. And the other back's good too.
Yeah. So I think the fact that your coach refuses to change and adjust throughout the season is just showing that's causing all the problems, and that's why you're losing these games the way you are. It's not for lack of talent. It's not because Miller Moss isn't good. I know I've seen a lot of USC fans calling for him to be benched. It's not Miller Moss's fault. It's not
his problem, man. It is not his problem.
It is your head coach.
He can't block.
No.
He can't play call.
Nope.
He can't, yeah.
So it is not your quarterback's fault. It's none of the players' fault, in my opinion. I think there's talent enough there to win some of these games, but it's the play calling, and it's the fact that your head coach doesn't want to go away from the pass ever, essentially. So
I mean, 50-24, man, that's wild.
Yeah.
That's like Mike Leach on Ether.
Yep.
Kind of numbers.
Yep.
Like, what are you even doing? Like, you're not giving yourself a chance. And this isn't a game, again, where you were ahead. You were ahead. So you could dictate terms. You could run the ball. You could grind down the defense. You could take some time off the clock.
Yeah.
And when you had a lead. But Lincoln Riley won't do that. And he gives teams plenty of time and plenty of chances because 3 incomplete passes happen really fast. And then you're giving the ball away. And it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not asking for Lincoln Riley to change who he is.
Yeah.
But you gotta, I mean, you don't want to run the ball like 40-45% of the time? You can't do that? It's not that much.
No.
It shouldn't be that much to ask that you run the ball that much. When you're winning, this is the thing. It'd be one thing if they were behind in all these games and trying to come back. They are winning in these games and still choosing not to run the ball.
Find a way to lose. Yep.
When your offensive line is clearly better at run blocking than they are at pass blocking.
Yep.
Clearly better.
Yeah. We've seen that consistently for weeks now.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Riley just apparently is just dead set on thinking that we're just going to throw all over the field and we're going to score more points than you, which they generally do until it doesn't work anymore. And like you said, like if they let Woody Marks just go off, for a quarter or two, like I think that they would be able to win some of these games. I really do. I think it would happen. So, because it's not that Maryland is like a world beater either, or that Minnesota, or like it's not. It's just
or Michigan,
You're getting out coached, is what's happening.
Yeah, flat out coached, and it's happening over and over again.
Yep.
We sat here last summer, and we predicted that USC would struggle. Yep. But when I said struggle, I meant like 8-4, 7-5. They're 3-4 right now.
Yeah, I thought 7-5. Yeah, I was thinking 7-5, 8-4. Yeah, as well. This is scary place to be.
I mean, to get to 7-5, they'd have to go 4-1 to end the year. And like, I don't know, man. I think all of those games are going to be challenging.
Yep.
I don't think they have, there's no Purdue on the schedule. So this is really interesting. And it's also interesting because, like, will the team make the best of it? So far, they've still been playing hard, right?
Yeah.
And they rally down the stretch. Or are they just going to quit on Lincoln Riley? Like, they haven't quit yet. But you can argue they started to in the Maryland game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do we see a game coming up where USC just lays over and doesn't compete?
Like,
I could see that happen. But I could also see them getting hot and getting to 7-5. That could happen too.
Yes.
I don't think they beat Notre Dame, but the other 4 games are all certainly winnable.
Yeah.
It's just definitely not where USC thought the Lincoln Riley era was heading when they signed him to $100 million deal.
Yeah.
And now they're stuck with him because his buyout is like $75 million. So they can't get rid of him even if they want to.
Yep.
So Lincoln Riley better figure it out, man, because otherwise it's going to be how many more seasons of this, you know?
Well, and it's funny how, like, prior to everything, we were like, last year it was the defense that was the problem.
Yes.
And now it's because, like, oh, well, he didn't want them to tackle in practices and whatever, which is like insane to me. But then now it's him. Like, it's his inability to adjust to the way things work in the Big Ten.
The defense has gotten better.
The defense is fine. Honestly,
fine.
I don't have any issues with the defense at all.
No.
Actually. It's and honestly, I don't actually have a lot of issues with the offense. It's not that they're bad. It's the play calling, and it's the lack of willingness to adjust. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So this solely lays on Lincoln Riley, in my opinion. This is any of you USC fans out there who are like, oh, let's bench Miller Moss. It's not blaming it. No, dude, that's ridiculous. Stop.
You can put in the backup. It's not going to be any better.
No,
he's not going to have any more time to throw.
Nope. No, man, it's Lincoln Riley. So if he doesn't adjust, then it could be a problem. If they don't win this game against Rutgers, then I don't know what to do.
If they don't beat Rutgers, I think they're going to quit.
Yeah.
So I hope, I mean, for their sake, for Lincoln Riley's sake, dude, that's a really interesting game. Those are 2 desperate teams, Rutgers and the USC. Like, that's going to be a really interesting one to preview.
But Maryland, we got to give credit to Loxley though, man. He came back.
Yeah. They saved the season.
Yep. Saved the season. He's not known to be a coach that comes back when he's down by that big of a deficit. And he did it. And this team fought back and did well. Billy Edwards Jr. is the real deal. He's a good quarterback. And obviously it helps to have receivers like Ty Felton and Prather. And it's just amazing. So
those guys are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Maryland, the season's back on. They're feeling good. So good for them. Big win, big emotional win. Congrats to the Terrapins. All right. We have made it to our last game of the evening. We had the Michigan State Spartans 32, the Iowa Hawkeyes 20. Jonathan Kim made a school record 6 field goals. And Aiden Childs had arguably his most efficient game of the season in this huge upset victory over formerly ascendant Iowa. Cade McNamara capped a 58-yard drive at the start of the second half with an 18-yard TD pass to Reese Vanderzee, pulling the Hawkeyes to behind just 12-7. Spartans responded with a drive of their own, though, and an 18-yard TD pass of their own from Childs to Montori Foster to put them up 19-7. Iowa scored a 2-yard plunge by backup QB Brendan Sullivan, who's apparently the running QB now. What? Late in the third quarter. But Kim hit field goals of 55 and 46 yards in the fourth quarter to give Sparty a 25-14 lead with half the fourth quarter remaining. Iowa cut it to 25-20 only 12 seconds later when Iowa phenom running back Caleb Johnson broke loose for a 75-yard TD run. Sparty, though, sealed the win with a short Nate Carter TD run with a couple minutes left. Michigan State coach Jonathan Smith said, quote, "They pushed us throughout the second half, got it within one score a couple times, and the response from this group was huge," close quote. Sparty dominated the first half, jumping out to a 12-0 lead on Kim's 4-for-5 first half field goals. Iowa was outgunned 250-58 in the first half, managed just 28 yards rushing at the break. That Joe Rossi defense just shut down the Iowa running game. Iowa, John, now ranks just 127th in passing offense out of 133 FBS teams. McNamara was 3 for 9 for 30 yards in the first half. QB Cade McNamara was just 11 for 23 overall, 48% completions, 150 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt, 1 TD, 1 pick. Yikes. Running back Caleb Johnson had just 98 yards rushing, and 75 of those came on one play. Outside of that, he was totally shut down. And the passing game was so anemic that Johnson led the way receiving with just 49 yards, while Vanderzee had 47 and a touchdown. For Sparty, QB Aiden Childs was fantastic, completing 22 of 30 for 256 yards, a workman-like 8.5 yards per attempt, 1 TD, 1 pick for a QBR of 81.3. Sparty managed 212 yards rushing, which was huge for them, as Lynch, Adams, Nate Carter, and Childs himself all contributed to the rushing attack. To outgain Iowa on the ground, that severely is wild. Both Nick Marsh and Montori Foster managed 100-yard receiving games. So that was the story of the game, is those guys made big plays downfield when Sparty needed to move the ball and flip field position. Linebacker Jordan Turner had 6 tackles in a TFL for Sparty, but the stats were pretty spread out as Sparty filled their gaps and played assignment sound football, which frustrated All-American running back Caleb Johnson. John, what'd you think of this one?
Well, I would have to say the game ball, you'd probably give it to Aiden Childs because he looks amazing and you finally saw him put it all together and not make a ton of mistakes. The talent's always been there. The guy's a freak. I think he's just going to continue to get better and be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But the game ball man goes to Joe Rossi. As frustrating as it is for you and me, because he is the first person, I don't know, maybe this season, that held Caleb Johnson under 100 yards.
The first one. Yeah.
So there you go. He stopped Caleb Johnson, which was an unstoppable force up to this point.
Yeah.
And we should have known. We should have seen it. We should have known better because Joe Rossi is the only one who's ever been able to stop Iowa before. That, like this, at least unless you're Ohio State or, Penn State or something like that.
Yeah.
So it happened. Joe Rossi did what Joe Rossi does, and he seems to know how to figure out this Iowa team and Kirk Ferentz. And he did it, and it was amazing. It definitely, it's frustrating for us because obviously we lost him to Sparty. But good for you guys on having this amazing coordinator. And obviously you've seen that defense continue to improve from week to week and look more and more competent. And even when they didn't look great, they were always in position. So it was, you knew it was just a matter of time before everything clicked, and it has. So that's amazing. Now for Iowa, well, actually, I'm going to touch a little bit more on a couple other things. Is what I saw also with this offense from Michigan State, to talk more about that too. They were really doing a lot of what Iowa had been doing, and they ran a lot of stretch and toss plays.
Yep.
And which was working, because that Iowa defensive line is really tough to run on. But if you're specifically doing inside zone like Minnesota did, which obviously failed miserably. That Michigan State field goal kicker, Kim, has freaking ice in his veins.
6 field goals. And to hit a 50+ yarder and a 40+ yarder in the fourth quarter like that.
Dude.
Or second half like that, I mean.
He is terrifying. There's not a single, you could tell the way he kicks. It's there's no doubt in his mind that every single kick, and it's not I got this, like Dragon was last year, where it was whatever, I got it, boom, nailed it. This guy is just
he's like a machine.
Serious. Yeah. He's a machine. There's no emotion. It's just boom, 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 in. It's amazing. So
yeah,
this guy, if he doesn't win Big Ten Kicker of the Year, I don't know what to tell you, but
he will.
He absolutely should. So, but then to go to Iowa, obviously we talked about, Cade McNamara was just doing what Cade McNamara always does. Caleb Johnson was stopped, but this Iowa defense, dude, is just not what it was.
It's getting worse than it was earlier in the year.
Yeah,
they're getting worse as the year goes on, which is not what Phil Parker defenses ever do.
No, the tackling was bad.
Yeah,
to
give up over 200 yards rushing blows my mind.
It's something's going on.
Did they think not take Sparty seriously? You wonder.
Guess. It makes you wonder, and also they just watching Aiden Childs. There was I can't remember where it took place, but Aiden Childs and his elusiveness is just terrifying because he's just playing backyard football, and I think he deked out 3 or 4 different Iowa defenders. It was nothing.
Yeah,
and that's not something Iowa ever does. Like, you might be able to get 1 or 2 by them, but like that's lucky. But it looked like it was just messy. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with their defense either. Iowa looked lost in this game. And yeah, Michigan State looks like they're putting it together, man. They really are down the stretch,
Yeah.
which is not surprising. Jonathan Smith is a great
He's a great coach.
great
We
coach.
said so.
Yep.
For Sparty, they're 4-3, and they must be Jonathan Smith has got to be loving where he's at.
Yeah.
They have a chance to make a bowl game in year 1, which he can use to sell recruits, his vision on the recruiting trail.
Yep.
He even has a signature-ish win over what looked like an ascendant Iowa team before this performance, right? Because Iowa before this had only lost to Ohio State and Iowa State. So they looked pretty tough.
Yep.
Before they lost this game. For Iowa, man, this is rough. You had the schedule and the experience and the once-in-a-generation All-American running back to make a playoff run this year.
Yep.
Now at 4-3, you're out of the playoff race entirely, out of the Big Ten race, and you're wondering how you lost to a rebuilding Michigan State program so badly.
Yep.
Gain balls can be given to both coordinators, as Sparty had a lot more success on both offense and defense than I expected them to have in this game. I just, it's Kirk Ferentz teams lay an egg once in a while, and man, when they do, it's so ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was just a full-out egg. I mean, they were not ready to play, and you wonder where Iowa's heads are at coming out of this game, having been so not ready to play in a game that everyone expected them to win.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Yeah, we didn't predict this. No, I thought Iowa was going to roll over Sparty. I thought Caleb Johnson was going to go bananas, and it just none of it materialized.
Nope. Yep. Well, just another week with, I guess, like that lack of ability to throw the ball really is just continuing to kill him. So
what's up with bringing in Brendan Sullivan to run the ball?
Why are you letting him throw? Like at all?
I don't even understand it.
Like, why aren't you just trying to give this guy a shot? I don't get it.
I think Kirk Ferentz is hung up on I think Brendan Sullivan turns the ball over too much for him. And he was but then why'd you bring him in?
But they haven't even given him a shot to even try to turn the ball over. I get it. Like, I hear what you're saying, but do you think he's just too committed to Cater? Yes. Did Kirk throw in $1 million of his own money to keep Cade in Iowa? And he's like, I invested too much. I gotta play the guy. I put my own personal money into this. I don't know. What's going on?
We've seen Ferentz do this before, though. Once he decides on a quarterback, he does not want to switch. No matter what, no matter how bad it gets, he does not want to switch unless he absolutely has to. I don't know why, man. It's really interesting because you'll see him substitute at other positions. Like, it's no big deal when guys aren't playing well.
Yep.
But at quarterback, once he's got his guy, he does not want to do it. And Cade is costing them games at this point. He is.
Absolutely.
So, it's not great.
But that's what I mean. Give Brendan Sullivan a shot. What do you got to lose? What do you have to lose? Maybe he can add some other wrinkle to your offense. I don't know. Maybe he's got
I'm with
legs.
you, but I don't think he's going to do it.
Oh, no, I don't either. But
I think if Brendan Sullivan, in fact, I bet you Brendan Sullivan ends up transferring out of Iowa after this year.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise
because
me.
he didn't get a chance when he thought he should.
Yep.
And if you're Brendan Sullivan, why would you ever trust that Kirk Ferentz is going to play you? If you know what I mean?
Yeah, no way.
So yeah, it's weird, man. It's all weird. It's weird that he won't play Brendan Sullivan. It's weird that Cade McNamara's regressed so much. It's all weird. But the only constant is Kirk Ferentz in that offense. That's the only constant with the Iowa offense. They got a new quarterback. They got a new coordinator. They did all this stuff to change things, but Kirk Ferentz is still there, and we are still seeing the same Iowa offense, even now with a generational running back, which is generally what Iowa needs for their offense to hum.
Yeah.
So the fact that they couldn't make it work even with Caleb Johnson, all the time, is crazy to me. Iowa's 4-3, man. They're 4-3. I did not expect that. I thought they were going to be 6-1, 7-0 at this point. Not 7-0, but I thought they were going to be 6-1, 5-2 at this point.
Well, just a gentle reminder to any Hawkeye fans listening, it was not Brian Ferentz's fault.
No,
It has been Kirk the whole time.
the calls were coming from inside the house.
Yes. All of you owe him an apology. That's what I'm going
Dude.
to say.
Yeah, he fell on his sword, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Really interesting. All right, John, we made it through all the games.
Yes, we did. And it was great. Looking forward to the next one. We got a preview coming up here in a couple days on Wednesday. So if you want to find We Live for Saturday, I'll go through this again. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26. You can find me at Norwegian Gopher. And you can also email us, we live for Saturday, b1g at gmail.com. And as always, follow, like, subscribe, get the word out there, retweet, all this stuff, please. Thank you.
Yes, please. It really helps us get in front of new eyes and new people. And we're always trying to grow the pod, especially during the season. So yes, please share the pod with people that you care about who like Big Ten football. And, let us know when you do that. And we will, we'll give you a shout out and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So thank you so much for listening. And we will be back with the preview episode in a couple days on Wednesday night. And I'm excited to preview. We've got a really fun slate of games this weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.